This is Millie. She's a lovely Spaniel who came in acutely lame after chasing something in the field. As you can see, she's landing heavier on that left forelimb, which means that she is right forelimb lame. So this is abnormal for her. She's previously had some issues with her left elbow, so we were a little bit worried it would be the right one as well. You can see from the side again that she's just having a bit of a limp on this leg, tail tucked under, doesn't seem too happy and is panting quite a bit. Did some functional exercises. This is something I do quite regularly as a physio, some sit to stands. Again, not her usual self, seemed quite tucked under and what we would call kyphotic in her posture with this lower back sort of scrunched up and rounded. And then again, trying to test the forelimbs, doing some down to sit. You can see the right paw, so her right paw, is just skimming the surface of the floor, so it's moving around quite a lot. When we do some tight turns with her, a little bit stilted on the turn, the rhythm isn't great, and again, we've got these shortened steps with the forelimb where she's trying to protect that right forelimb. We can come back to this at the end again after the session and see if she's improved. I'll usually start a physio session with some palpation after the gait assessment. This is a fancy word for feeling, and I'll use the whole of my hands to feel for any heat, any swelling, and any areas that are of concern. You can see on her coat, sometimes you get these fluffy, curly sort of areas just behind the back of a collar. And this usually indicates that there is some restriction through the soft tissue, the skin underneath. So after a palpate, there was no direct heat there, but then going in and palpating the dorsal spinous processes, so her spine directly, there was definitely some areas that were triggering and spasming, which we can see, especially in this lower back there. So that was another thing I added to my to-do list. I try and look at dogs as a full picture and not just for the injury site for which they are referred or diagnosed with. So even though we know she was limping on her right forelimb, I did assess all of her limbs and her back as well. When I went in a little bit closer to palpate and feel some of the joints and the range of motion she had in this right forelimb, there wasn't actually a great deal to see. She was a little bit resistant in protraction, so bringing the limb forward, and in retraction as well, she resisted a little bit, which prompted me to then go in and start to inspect the muscles in this area. So I found that the muscles on both sides of this leg were actually quite sore. So the big long neck muscles and also something called the latissimus dorsi, which is the digging muscle if you think about dogs digging in a garden. So we did some massage techniques to try and alleviate some of this off. Here I'm doing some ringing, which is a type of massage technique. It probably crosses over a little bit into myofascial release as well, but it did help her just settle down and relax more into the treatment as we went through. So when we first started, she was quite anxious and a little bit upset about someone touching something that was sore for her. So it did help her just calm and settle as well and allowed me to get much more out of that session. Then we went in a little bit more to see what muscles in particular were quite sore. Now, her triceps on this right side was sore. As I mentioned, her latissimus dorsi, so just behind that shoulder, where the black spot ends, was quite sore. And those neck muscles on that right-hand side and down into that chest. The whole girdle around this limb had been either injured when she slipped or pulled and sore from compensation. We also found a little corn. You can just see it on the tip of this second digit, right on the very end on this right forelimb as well. Now, I don't think this was the issue in why she was limping, but it was definitely something that was sore when touched and may have been preventing her pulling all of her weight down that leg. I moved on and did some other electrotherapy work. So we did some low-level laser therapy, including red and infrared, which is what this handheld device is, over that latissimus muscle, as I did some more myofascial release and some massage as well. And she did get a few biscuits, which she was very happy about. Then went back in and double checked the area to make sure it was gliding nicely. The soft tissue, the fascia, the muscles weren't stuck and restricting still. And then turned my attention to some of the other areas. The lower back, I put a TENS machine on after doing some work there. I often find with some dogs that the more manual therapy you do, sometimes if they're older, they don't have as much muscle mass, it can be quite restrictive and quite sore and bruised if you go too deep. She had some PMFT to help through that limb, and then we moved on to some remedial exercises in which she had some of these as homework. So here I'm doing some rocking or rhythmic stabilization with her to encourage now the weight bearing to be pushed onto that right forelimb. This helps the brain and something called central pattern generators realize that the pain that the dog's anticipating actually isn't there and they're safe to put some more weight onto that limb. Then did some little side steps just to see if she could open some of those pectoral muscles on her chest that were sore, and just again start to locomote a little bit better through that limb. So we did some of those. I then went on to do some baited stretches with her. So here I'm just going to guide her head in between her legs and look for a nice raise in that lumbar region to stretch out all those back muscles where we had that TENS machine, and try and keep them nice and soft and supple and stop them becoming more adhesed again. She did a couple of reps of those. You can see she shifted the weight back a little bit, but it's good that her feet are remaining still through this and we're getting that lift through her back. We then went back to the functional exercises, and I think that this was much, much better. We're getting some more push through that right forelimb as she's going from the down back into the sit, and her back looks a lot straighter than when we started as well. She did some paw just to help with that protraction and recruit some of those muscles herself, help with the core stability. And then we also did some lateral baited stretches either side as well. So her left one there was quite good. The right one was still a little bit tricky, and I supplied this as homework for the owners. We'll walk her up again, see what you think, and tell me what you think in the comments if she looks a little bit better after the session compared to when we started.